Hello, welcome to this video on Bodhicaryavatara, chapter 7, verse 74. Laghum kuryat tatatmanam apramada katan smaran karma gamad yatha purvam sajjah sarvatra vartate. I'll do it again now with the text in front of you. Oops. Here we are. Laghum kuryat tatatmanam apramada smaran karma gamad yatha purvam sajjah sarvatra vartate. The principal verb here is the verb kuryat. That is the optative form of the class 8 verb kri, to do. That's the optative atmanepada form. This verb kri can be used very frequently, is used virtually indiscriminately between parasmaipada and atmanepada. As you all know, back in Vedic times, a verb in the parasmaipada has a more transitive sense, doing something to somebody or something else. The atmanepada has more of what's known as well, in Greek grammar, as a middle sense. That is, you're doing something to or for yourself. But in classical Sanskrit, which is what we're dealing with here, that distinction is sometimes maintained, but is to a very large extent not rigorously maintained or fairly rigorously maintained as it was in Vedic times. In verse 71, just 3 verses back, we had the atmanepada form, the kurvita. So kurvita, atmanepada form, kuryat, parasmaipada form, essentially with the same meaning in this text. So kuryat, again with the unspoken, the implied subject, meaning one generally should do or make. So kuryat, one should make. Atmanam, atma, masculine noun, oneself. It's sometimes used in the philosophical sense, the paramatma, the great universal self, but it's often used in just an ordinary grammatical way. One should make oneself versatile, one should prepare oneself, not used in a philosophical way at all, simply as the reflexive pronoun. And that's how it's used here. Atmanam, kuryat atmanam, one should make oneself. Laghu. Laghu literally means light in weight, that is. And it's used in this context as in to mean versatile, ready to deal with all eventualities, not just heavily stuck in one mode, but you're light. You can act appropriately, act skillfully according to the situation you're in. That's known as being light. Incidentally, in the verse 1 or 2, I forget which, of the Karaniya Metta Sutta, Sallahukavuti, Lahu, Laghu Sanskrit, Lahu or Laghu Pali, Sallahukavuti, faring lightly, living lightly treading lightly on the face of the earth, Sallahukavuti. But here, Laghu in the sense of versatile. Let me just call up the iPad here. So Sanskrit Laghu. Oops. It's actually cognate with our English word light. We've even retained the GH spelling from the old sound ch, licht. but it's an aspirated g in Sanskrit, laghu, light. That's light and weight we're talking about, nothing to do with light and dark. We often find the g-v flip um, between Sanskrit and Latin. So, in fact, the Latin word levis, meaning light again, light in weight, is from that same root as the gut to ava. We see it, that same flip in even within words of similar meaning in English, guard and ward, guardian, warden, the gut and the wa. And from levis, of course, we have levity, meaning kind of often used in a pejorative sense, kind of lightheartedness. We have levitate, to come up off the ground as if you're as light as air, and so on. So, kuryat atmanam laghum. Now, atmanam, of course, in the accusative, one should make oneself. One should make oneself what? Laghu, light. Now, that goes in the accusative to agree with atmanam. One should make oneself light. Kuryat atmanam laghum. Smaran. Let's get back to text. Here we are. Smaran, remembering. That's a regular class 1 verb. Smri, smarati, smaran. So remembering what? Apramada katam. There's a lot to be said about pramada and apramada, often translated as pramada diligence, apramada negligence. There's a lot of practice and wisdom and learning behind those words. From the root mud. I've done a note on it. So pramada is just literally kind of madding forth. It's possibly even our English word mad, and the mud in Sanskrit may be of the same origin. It's the mind not being fully self-possessed and self-contained. Forth out. Pramada, madding forth. In other words, the normal monkey mind going here, there, and everywhere, following what you like and what you don't like. Often translated as heedlessness, negligence, and so on. Pramada, just following your whim, following your fancy, madding forth. By contrast, apramada is the opposite of that. Apramada, the non-madding forth, often translated as diligence, heedfulness, something like that. It's the faculty of just holding the mind back in, the calm, the collected, the mindful mind that doesn't mad forth. It's not constantly chasing after what you like, fighting against what you don't like. It's just calm, receptive, deep and wise. That's the apramada. Kata is a word meaning just speech or talking. From that same root comes the kat, katayati, to tell. Cognate with the word quote. You are telling what somebody else said, quote. And in older English, the word quote actually means just to say so and so quoth he. You'll see in Shakespeare, for example, quoth he, said he. Cognated with the Latin inquit, he said. So the noun kata means, generally speaking, it also means a story. Or a speech or a talking about something. Here in the apramada kata, it's used in the sense of a teaching, what has been said about that subject. So the apramada kata means the apramada, the heedfulness saying, literally the teaching on diligence, heedfulness. So I've explained all that so far without talking about where the word tata comes in. So lagum kuryat atmanam, one should make oneself versatile, apramada katam smaran, remembering the teaching on heedfulness, on apramada. Now, we've got the word tata here, which correlates with yata. So, the second line means just as one always prepares oneself, has oneself in a state of readiness before undertaking a task, just as one does that, so also, tata, you should make yourself versatile, you're ready to adjust yourself in accordance with the circumstances, remembering the teaching on mindfulness. So remember the tata and the yata are in correlation. More frequently than not, you'll find that yata comes in the first element of what's being compared, and tata comes in the second element, but not necessarily so as here. I mean, you could easily flip these two lines round and put the second one first. It would give exactly the same meaning. So come to the second line now. Yatha, just as, then purvam means before, or in advance of, purva. Karma agamat, it takes the ablative here, karma agamat, purvam. The karma agama, literally the work coming, in other words, the arrival of the task being in front of you to do. So before the task is there to be done, before the moment comes that you've got to get down to it, you get yourself ready in advance. So karmagamat purvam, before literally the work coming, before the arrival of the task, before it's in front of you to do. Sarvatra, always. Vartate, one fares, one is, one conducts oneself in a certain way. Sajjaha. Sajjaha just means in a state of, ready, in a state of being prepared to do whatever needs to be done. This vartate, you'll see it quite often. The root is vrit. It is a regular class 1 verb. Let me call up my iPad again. I've done a note on it. Sorry, make this up. Come on. Vrit. The most basic primitive root meaning of that word is to turn, or turn around. It came into Latin as vert, the same meaning, to turn. We have, and then through into English, to revert, to turn back, to invert, to turn upside down, to divert, to turn away from something. To convert is to turn towards yourself, to bring people round to your way of thinking. Convert, to turn them towards yourself. Regular class 1 verb, guna of the root vowel, and so the present tense makes vart. It is an atmanepada verb, so it's vartate. So as I said, the root meaning is to turn, but it also means to proceed, to act in a certain way, to fare in a certain way, to conduct oneself in a certain way. So, sarvatra sajjah vartate, or was it sajjah? Sorry, sajjah sarvatra vartate. It means one always proceeds and one always is in a state of readiness. That means it's kind of a habitual way of being. You always conduct yourself in such a way that you are ready before the moment that you actually have to delve into the task or to dive into the task. So, by the way, we've heard before this sarvatra. Sarvatra, this ending tra um, primarily used for, it can be used for time and place. So sarvatra can mean everywhere and at all times. So the meaning kind of is it varies between them both. Or I say applies equally to them both. Here is used always, but imagine the use of everywhere, meaning always. He behaves everywhere in such and such a way. He behaves always in such and such a way. You can see how the meanings can kind of overlap to a certain extent, even though always is, overtly refers to time, everywhere overtly refers to place. But you see in colloquial usage, there's a certain overlap between them. So, using the more or less English word order here. Yata, just as. So yata. So I'm trying to operate on two screens here with a shared screen and a live screen. Yata, just as. Purvam, before. Karmagamad, ablative, the task coming, the coming of the task, the moment when the task is in front of you, got to, just as before the coming of the task. Vartate, one behaves in such a way, one proceeds. Sajja, ready for it. Sarvatra, always. So just as before the moment comes to do the task, one is always ready for it. You get yourself ready in advance for it. Tata, thus, in that same way, tata, atmanam, laghum kuryat. In the same way, kuryat, one should make atmanam, oneself, laghum, light, versatile, smaran, remembering, apramada katam, the heedfulness words, the teaching on heedfulness. So I'll read it through once more. Laghum kuryat tatatmanam apramada katam smaran karma gamadyata purvam sajjah sarvatra vartate. And once more. Laghum kuryat tatatmanam apramada katam smaran karmagamat yata purvam sajja sarvatra vartate. And that's it on this verse.